Welcome to Summit 2020 by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and thank you for joining this session, The Jeans Redesign in Action. The fashion industry faces a number of social and environmental challenges and has deeply felt the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis. There's a need to not only address the most immediate challenges, but also to really look forwards and how to reinvent the fashion industry for long-term growth. The circular economy offers an alternative operating model, one where clothes are used more, are made to be made again, from safe, recycled and renewable inputs. Last year, the Make Fashion Circular initiative kicked off the Jeans Redesign, with the aim to really understand what it would take to apply circular economy principles to product design. The project has really been about getting started and not waiting until we have all of the answers, and demonstrating that circular economy principles can be applied today. We've gathered around 50 leading organizations from brands, manufacturers, and fabric mills who are already applying the redesign guidelines and will be creating products in line with those available before the end of next year. Those applying the Jeans Redesign guidelines are working to ensure that their products can be used longer, are designed in a way that they can be recyclable, and they are better for the health of garment workers and for the environment. The project is already revealing opportunities to scale circular economy principles beyond jeans and into other products. And it presents an opening for the rest of the fashion industry to get on board. I caught up with some of our Jeans Redesign participants to find out how this project is making an impact. First up, we have Michelle Sizemore, who is the Senior Vice President of Product Development at GAP. Michelle shared with us how the Jeans Redesign is inspiring other brands within their group to get involved. GAP have been one of the core partners of Make Fashion Circular from really the very beginning. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you joined Make Fashion Circular?
So, we decided to become a core partner to Make Fashion Circular because the challenges that are this big they call for industry-wide and system-based solutions. And we don't believe that we can do it alone. And having like-minded partners, we wanted to be a part of the solution. And we also feel that, denim is at the core of GAP Inc. It's what we're founded on. It is in our DNA. And so this is our sweet spot.
And I think, you've mentioned the point that denim is at the core of your DNA. How does a brand like GAP, when that's the case, really get started on an approach with a project like the Jeans Redesign that is asking you to rethink and redesign the very way that the denim is made?
So, there are so many roadblocks, if you will, in the day-to-day development and design of product. If you think about, our teams they have to think about logistics. They have to think about costing. They have to think about lead times in an ever-changing environment. And, what we did is through this project is we really put those aside and we took those constraints off the table and, gave our design and product development community we unshackled them, if you will, to really focus on circularity and not be hampered by those things. So once we can get to the solution, then you can always back up and then tackle the costing, tackle lead times, but really taking the shackles off from them and giving them really clear parameters, what this project did to be able to go solve for circularity beyond sustainability. And that's where we need to move as an industry. And, it starts with this small collection, but it really fueled a much bigger, it's the organization from end to end that has to solve it. And that's also why we love this project, is because look at the other retailers that are signed on. Some of these are, if you would think about it normally, they may be our competitors when we're talking about, acquiring consumers and sales, but we're all in this together. And so having this idea of sharing of solutions is, really powerful. We have to change this industry, and it starts with a small project like this. So it's been very interesting to see how this challenge has fueled energy in our brand and also outside of the brand with our entire supply chain. And so what's interesting is that even though we're solving specifically for the design gene challenge, what we've learned, we've been able to take some of these solutions and apply them already to how we produce our khakis, the chemistry that we use in the khakis, using less water. So these solutions can be translated to other products, and that's what's so exciting about this. And specifically for Gap brand, we just landed our spring 21 assortment, and over 30% of our entire assortment has some elements, not all, but some elements of sustainable attributes, which is super exciting. And that's double from a year ago.
And it's not just Gap brand itself that's involved in the Jeans Redesign. I think you also have another brand that's taking part. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so, the Jeans Redesign project, when, Gap brand was the first in our portfolio to really sign up and start to do this new way of thinking about designing circularity. And it really sparked an interest across the company. And BR, Banana Republic, one of our sister brands in our portfolio, they got really inspired by the project. And so they've also signed on. And again, what we learn through this process, we share with our partners at Old Navy, our partners at Athleta. And so again, we believe that these solutions are really easily translatable to other products.
Which is, I think, really inspiring, actually, seeing that, we're talking around going from Gap brand to, inspiring the industry, but actually in terms of Gap, you've gone from Gap brand to Banana Republic, and you're sharing the learnings further across each of your brands. So even internally, that's happening already.
Yeah, and I think it starts to, it's infectious, right? In the design community, these are very specific, concrete examples that has really fueled even more innovation within our product development organization.
And so we've talked a little bit about, some of the challenges that Gap has been tackling and how this is now spreading through the other brands. Perhaps a final question for you would be, where do you see Gap going next? How does this translate? What's next for Gap?
So again, I think taking this energy and the spark that this project has provided and taking these solutions beyond denim, right? Beyond this capsule, our size and our scale, like, again, we have the accountability and the responsibility. And we've been adopting mechanically recycled cottons. We are researching like textile collections, rental, and educating our design teams and product development teams on every single decision that we make, either has the capability of having a negative impact or a positive impact. And so education is critical on this. Again, so taking it beyond this collection into every decision we make along the supply chain.
It's not only Gap who have found other colleagues becoming interested in the Jeans Redesign and how to apply those principles to other products. I was also joined by Erickson Mitchell, who is the Associate Director of Denim at Guess. And he shared that equally, other colleagues are very interested in what's happening with the Jeans Redesign. He also acknowledged that this is just the beginning of their journey.
Well, thank you for having me. Quite simply, the approach that Guess took was first partnering with a local design school, FIDM. And really that was pretty crucial in our journey because we were sort of learning with the students. And I just fully embraced that. The students had a lot of questions that even I had to go back and dig into and figure out. So we learned together. And as we are getting ready to deliver our first product within Jeans Redesign, we're actually taking a lot of the principles that we learned during that program and applying it today. The next step for us was collaborating externally, with our supply chain. We had to figure out, okay, we know how we're going to design into circular fashion, but now we have to take it to a practical approach. We have to figure out how we're actually going to get this to market. We're going to figure out how we're going to actually produce these goods. So we have to figure out, every different level of the supply chain, whether it was our thread suppliers, fabric suppliers, our factories. So it took a lot of collaboration to bring in all aspects of Jean Redesign together.
Great, thank you. And in terms of sort of getting started, were there any major challenges? Can you tell me more about how those were overcome?
Well, there were a ton of challenges. Namely, so one of the challenges that we had when we started this program, as I mentioned, we started with FIDM, and one of the challenges that we discussed with the students was trying to figure out, okay, how can we make a sustainable product that adheres to the guests' requirements as well as Jeans Redesign, but how do we make sure that we maintain the guest DNA? And when you think of the guest DNA, one key aspect of that is, bodycon, sexy, and performance. And with Jeans Redesign, there's a big portion of the requirement that speaks to material health. And with material health, you want to make sure that the majority of the composition is coming from a cellulose base, but that doesn't necessarily give you the performance attributes that you need in order to make sure that when that customer puts on that garment, it's going to maintain shape throughout the day. It's going to maintain comfort. So that was one of the key challenges that we had. We're trying to figure out how can we still maintain the guest aesthetic while making sure that we're still designing in circular attributes. When you want to have performance fabrics, you need to start introducing other synthetic fibers to the composition. And that's where we're going to be pretty limited, but it doesn't just speak to the fabric. It really speaks to the garment as a whole. So you're looking at your fabric, you're looking at your pocketing, you're looking at your inner lining, you're looking at your thread. So everything is sort of being looked at as a complete package and not just individual components that are sustainable coming together. You're really trying to make sure that you're building it in to the design of the product and making sure that when at the end of its life cycle, it truly doesn't end because it could properly be recycled. It can continue its life.
Another question that I had for you, Erickson, is you've got started now with a selection of the jeans that you're working on. How can a project like the Jeans Redesign actually help build momentum towards a circular economy?
It really starts the conversation. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to different suppliers within our supply chain, whether it's a factory, a trim supplier, a thread supplier, whoever it may be, asking them what can they offer to not only just deliver within the guidelines, but make sure that we're still making an aesthetically pleasing garment. And there, like we mentioned before, there's a lot of roadblocks. So, but that conversation is important. We all have that responsibility to pass the conversation on because that demand is going to push the industry forward. And as we, start having this conversation, suppliers, they're gonna really rise to the occasion to make sure that we have the tools needed in order to still be guests.
Will guests expand from jeans into other products?
Oh, absolutely, naturally. The more that we do it, the better we're gonna get at it. And even now, I'm getting calls all the time from, I just focus on denim within guests, denim all day. But our journey within Jeans Redesign has since left the denim category, and other people within the company are talking about it. So I'm getting calls all the time. Erickson, tell me more about the project with FIDM. Tell me more about the learnings you had with Jeans Redesign and how we can apply it to some of the non-denim categories.
Brilliant, and that's really exciting to hear because I think that's how we'll start to see it go from a small number of jeans to actually expanding across all of the fashion industry ultimately.
And at the moment, we talked a lot about roadblocks, and there will continue to be roadblocks. And, the industry will evolve to address these issues. But when you think of some of the non-denim categories, there's some sort of problems, some gaps that we have to figure out. The more that we can implement jeans redesign guidelines within some of our core product, the more impact we're going to be able to make, right? So some of these core product pieces may be graphic tees. They may be non-denim categories that are non-cellulose based. And we, at the moment, we haven't addressed how we're going to attack some of those categories, but we will, and we will evolve and get better at that. And so now our impact, we're going to deliver a product that fits within Jeans Redesign, and we're starting with denim. But for us, that's just the beginning. And as those additional resources become available to properly design circularity into non-denim categories, it's only natural that we are going to push that forward and really reach forward in our impact.
Brilliant. And if you could say anything about, what is needed to get from, where we are today to this future vision of a circular economy, what do you feel is needed to get and actually scale that?
I think it really is going to take a unified approach from everyone in the industry. The responsibility is on all of us. Guess we're embracing this, but our competitors need to embrace it too. Our mills need to embrace this. Our factories do, and that's the only way that we're going to move forward together.
Ericsson mentioned that it was critical to engage their suppliers right from the very beginning, and garment manufacturers have been playing a critical role for the Jeans Redesign project. I spoke with Piyumi Pereira, who is the head of design at the Hirdaramani Discovery Lab, around the role that manufacturers can play. As a manufacturer, how has Hirdaramani gone about implementing the guidelines?
Well, we've gone about implementing the guidelines, first of all, through our supply chain, Laura. And I think from 2 years ago to now, from when we first started engaging with the MacArthur Foundation to now, we've come a long way. And the first part of it was really the material health part of it, where we started sourcing differently. And we started making sure that, part of the fabric that we source seasonally also had these fabrics that fell into the Jeans Redesign criteria, that they had that percentage of recycled fiber in it. And it was very challenging to find suppliers who were doing this, that had traceable fiber in it, in the mix. And that's just the fabric part of it. Part of what we talked about and set as criteria was also the hardware on designing jeans, and we said that let's look at low electroplating, because that's environmentally harmful, and we found trims that are low electroplating and that are and less harmful. And we've also looked at alternative to metal hardware. So it's been a whole new way of approaching supply chain options for us as a manufacturer on one side, and that's grown. And there's a whole lineup of them back here, by the way. So anything with the whole Jeans Redesign tag at the back, it falls into the criteria that we decided at the workshop. And the first round was difficult, and to find the fabric and then to make sure that it fell into the wash. But then it became progressively easier as the designers started to approach, become more and more comfortable with the criteria, and it's great now.
And in terms of that process, you've talked a lot around internal changes. Have you also had any maybe new external collaborations or projects that have come out of taking this approach?
It's been a bit of a challenge, Laura, because just as we, I think, gathered a little momentum in getting the Jeans Redesign product out there, and behind me here we have a whole collection of jeans that carry the little blue Jeans Redesign tag, and we've always made sure that the collection, the past couple of seasons that we've put out and that we take on a road show to meet our customers, a good 20 to 30% of our collections carry products that fall into Jeans Redesign criteria. But I think, obviously, with the COVID situation, that's impacted, everybody's buying calendar, and also I think buyers in general have been influenced, and brands have been influenced by what we've shared with them. But they may not necessarily call it circular. And they may call it a different name within the brands, and they may call it. And I find that some of the brands don't necessarily want to share for the sake of not competitive advantage. What they're doing internally. Some are a little bit more open, but definitely we've seen a lot of customers move towards sustainable thinking.
I mean, I guess what would be interesting to understand would be from starting from a small point with, a small selection of jeans or small selection of denims with the Jeans Redesign. How can this help others learn, or how can this further scale across the industry?
Well, I mean, we are seeing it already, Laura. It's massive. Everything from our collections in terms of the way we present something, to the language we use, to the culture of the organization, to the choices in future technology that we invest in. I think it's just a complete the movement of circularity. It's absolutely influencing. I think it's the way forward, and we all know it. There's no need to separate it and say it's something off on a niche, but it's almost mainstream now. And it's definitely here to stay.
And I think, Pimi, that really wraps up most of the questions that I had. I just, from your point of view, I wondered if there was anything else you wanted to share about the journey that Hirdaramani has been on through this project, or anything around what's coming next.
Well, it's been a great journey, and what's coming next is our little project that I mentioned to you, Laura. So we've all brought in our jeans, and the question that we get here is, okay, so I'm bringing my old jeans. What do I get? Right? So everybody thinks they're going to get a new pair of jeans with their old jeans, and I think this is a fair question that a lot of consumers out there are going to ask. So it's still a small percentage of old fiber that would go into a new pair of jeans. And I think this is the equation that we have to try and keep improving. And projects like this are going to help us to do that, right? And make people start to believe when they start seeing, a new pair of jeans made and the story go around. So what's exciting for us is to try this new project and see how, our first set of truly circular internal Hirdaramani jeans come out. We'll share that with you, and then keep engaging with you guys and see and keep taking this great message forward, because I really think this is the way we need to thrive in the industry. In fact, fashion needs to thrive by having this deeper conscience and making clothing in a better way, and as we said in the last workshop, keep reinventing what good looks like.
As we have heard from our guests, the Jeans Redesign has been offering an entry point for the fashion industry to get started in applying circular economy principles. There's still a long way to go. However, there is momentum building. I wanted to say thank you again to our guests who joined us to share their perspectives, and thank you very much to you for joining us to listen in. And if you want to find out more about the Jeans Redesign project, you can find out more on the Ellen MacArthur Foundation website, not only with the Jeans Redesign guidelines, but also to find out the participants that are taking part. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the summit.